He never wanted to be famous. Now you will hear the version of the story no one ever imagined. February 1992. Kurt Cobain sat in a dressing room backstage at Saturday Night Live, staring at his reflection in a mirror, surrounded by harsh fluorescent lights. Outside, millions of Americans waited to see Nirvana perform. Inside, he felt his identity dissolving into something he no longer recognized. The face looking back at him belonged to a stranger, someone the world called a voice of a generation, a reluctant messiah, the future of rock music. But Kurt only saw a kid from Aberdeen who wanted to play guitar in his basement, not stand under spotlights while the world dissected his every word and movement. This was the moment everything changed. Not gradually, but violently, like a car crash in slow motion. Smells Like Teen Spirit had detonated across MTV 6 months earlier, transforming Nirvana from underground favorites into global superstars overnight. The transition happened so fast that Kurt's brain couldn't process it. 1 month he was playing to 300 people in dingy clubs. The next, stadiums, magazine covers, paparazzi hiding in bushes outside his home, strangers claiming to understand him based on 3-minute songs. The weight pressing down on his exhausted soul wasn't just pressure to create. It was the suffocating realization that he had become public property. His pain, his marriage, his struggles with addiction, all of it consumed as entertainment by millions who had no idea what it cost him to exist in their gaze. But what does fame actually do to the human mind? That question would haunt Kurt until his final day. The media treated him like a commodity, not a person. Journalists asked invasive questions about his heroin use, while cameras flashed in his face. Tabloids published lies about his relationship with Courtney Love, painting them as tragic junkies destroying each other. MTV wanted him to be accessible and authentic while simultaneously performing a manufactured version of rebellion that could be packaged and sold. The contradiction was maddening. Be yourself, but make it marketable. Be honest, but not too honest. Be vulnerable, but strong enough to carry a generation's angst on your shoulders. Kurt's stomach problems intensified under the stress. Doctors couldn't find a physical cause, suggesting psychosomatic origins, his body manifesting the psychological torture of unwanted celebrity. The pain became unbearable. Heroin offered temporary relief, but it came with its own price: addiction, public judgment, and the slow erosion of his already fragile mental health. By 1993, the walls were closing in. Nirvana's success had peaked, but Kurt felt trapped in a cage made of gold records and sold-out tours. Every interview became an interrogation. Every public appearance felt like a performance of someone else's idea of who he should be. The real Kurt Cobain, the sensitive kid who loved art and melody, disappeared beneath layers of mythology he never authorized. Would anyone survive this level of scrutiny? History suggests not. The pattern repeats across decades. Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, all brilliant artists consumed by fame's machinery, their struggles broadcast as spectacle until they couldn't continue. Kurt understood he was following this script, but felt powerless to change the ending. The industry that built him into an icon needed him to remain broken, because broken artists made better stories. Recovery wasn't dramatic. Stability didn't sell magazines. In March 1994, Kurt overdosed in Rome. The media called it a suicide attempt. Kurt said it was an accident. The truth existed somewhere in the ambiguous space between wanting to die and want the pain to stop. A distinction most people never have to navigate. But for someone living under constant surveillance, even that private moment became public fodder. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Fans held vigils. The machine kept grinding. After Rome, Kurt returned to Seattle and checked into rehab, then left within days. On April 8, 1994, an electrician found his body in the greenhouse above his home. He had been dead for 3 days. The shotgun beside him, a suicide note expressing his inability to continue performing emotions he no longer felt. The fame that millions envied had killed him as surely as the bullet. But why does celebrity destroy sensitive souls? The answer lies in the fundamental incompatibility between human psychology and modern fame. Humans evolved in small tribes where everyone knew each other. Our brains developed to handle perhaps 50 meaningful relationships. Dunbar's number. Fame multiplies that by thousands, sometimes millions. Suddenly, brainers feel entitled to your time, your story, your pain. They form parasocial relationships, believing they know you intimately based on curated public personas. The cognitive load becomes overwhelming. You cannot maintain authentic connections with millions. The attempt breaks something essential in the psyche. Kurt experienced this fracture daily. Fans approached him in restaurants, interrupting meals to express how his music saved their lives. While their gratitude was genuine, the cumulative effect felt suffocating. He couldn't eat dinner without performing emotional labor for strangers. He couldn't walk down streets without being photographed. Privacy, that fundamental human need for solitude and authentic self-expression, vanished completely. The 1990s lacked social media, but the paparazzi culture and tabloid journalism created similar invasions. Imagine that pressure multiplied by Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If Kurt struggled with pre-digital fame, how would he survive in an era where every moment is photographed, every statement scrutinized, every vulnerability turned into content? Modern artists face even more intense pressures than Kurt did. Social media demands constant engagement. Algorithms reward controversy. Cancel culture punishes mistakes with mob fury. The machine never stops, never sleeps, never allows recovery. Billie Eilish, who cites Nirvana as inspiration, speaks openly about fame's psychological cost. She describes anxiety attacks triggered by crowds, the prayer to remain authentic while millions watch, the impossible standards imposed on young artists, expected to be wise beyond their years. Would Kurt have adapted to this new landscape, or would it have destroyed him faster? The music industry in the 1990s was transitioning from artistic merit to pure commerce. Grunge represented authenticity in an era of manufactured pop, but success corrupted that ethos. Record labels saw Nirvana's numbers and tried replicating the formula with increasingly synthetic bands. Kurt watched his rebellion become a marketing strategy, his pain commodified into aesthetic that could be sold to suburban teenagers. The realization that he had become the very thing he despised, a cog in the corporate machine, deepened his despair. MTV's Unplugged performance in November 1993 captured this tension beautifully. Kurt chose to play covers and deep cuts rather than hits, refusing to give audiences what they expected. The performance was warmed, vulnerable, stripped of stadium bombast. It was Kurt trying to reclaim his art from the machinery of fame. But even that moment of authenticity became another product, another thing consumed and analyzed and sold. His relationship with Courtney Love complicated everything further. The media portrayed them as toxic enablers, Sid and Nancy for the grunge era. This narrative ignored their genuine connection and mutual artistic respect, reducing complex humans' tabloid archetypes. The constant scrutiny of their relationship added pressure neither could withstand. When Frances Bean was born in August 1992, even their daughter became media fodder. Child Protective Services investigated based on Vanity Fair article suggestions that Courtney used heroin while pregnant. The invasion extended to their child, proving no boundary existed between public and private life. Could any relationship survive such scrutiny? The question haunts celebrity culture still. By early 1994, Kurt existed in a perpetual state of crisis. His body was failing from drug use and chronic pain. His mind fractured under pressure to tour, record, perform, exist as Kurt Cobain rather than Kurt Cobain the human. He wrote in his suicide note about not feeling the music anymore, about faking emotions on stage because fame had hollowed him out. This confession reveals fame's cruelest trick. It doesn't just demand performance, it replaces authenticity with performance until you forget which is which. The note also expressed guilt toward fans. Kurt felt he was betraying people who found meaning in his music by no longer experiencing those emotions himself. This impossible standard that artists must perpetually embody their work creates unsustainable pressure. Musicians aren't therapy for millions of strangers. They're humans who wrote songs at specific moments, but fame freezes them in those moments forever, demanding they remain that person even as they grow and change. After Kurt's death, the mythology intensified. He became a martyr for authenticity. His tragic end, proof that real artists cannot survive the mainstream. But this narrative misses the point. Kurt didn't die because he was too authentic for fame. He died because fame is a psychologically destructive force that our culture treats as desirable rather than dangerous. What lessons did the industry learn? Tragically, few. The 2000s brought reality TV, turning ordinary people into celebrities overnight, with even less support than professional artists receive. Social media in the 2010s democratized fame, making it accessible to anyone with a smartphone and algorithmic luck. We created a world where teenagers become famous before their brains fully develop, where cancel culture can destroy lives over single mistakes, where the pressure Kurt experienced has become normalized as the cost of success. Artists today speak more openly about mental health than Kurt's generation could. This represents progress, but the fundamental structures creating psychological harm remain unchanged. Record labels still exploit, media still invades, fans still make mickle demands. The machine that killed Kurt continues operating, just with better PR acknowledging mental health, while doing nothing substantive to address industry-created trauma. If Kurt were starting his career today, would he even pursue fame? Or would he recognize the warning signs and choose obscurity? Some artists have found alternatives. Radiohead rejected traditional promotion. Frank Ocean controls his narrative through independence. But these exceptions prove the rule. Most artists lack leverage to resist industry demands. They sacrifice mental health for success because our culture offers no middle ground between obscurity and overwhelming celebrity. Kurt Cobain's death should have been a wake-up call. Instead, it became another chapter in rock mythology, his suffering romanticized rather than examined for systemic causes. We built museums to his memory while learning nothing about preventing similar tragedies. Amy Winehouse died in 2011 under eerily similar circumstances. Media scrutiny, addiction, mental health struggles ignored until too late. The pattern continues because the incentive structures reward exploitation. What would a healthier relationship with fame look like? It would require fundamental changes. Media respecting boundaries, fans understanding parasocial relationships aren't real friendships. Industries prioritizing artist welfare over profit. None of these seem likely in our current cultural moment. Kurt once said he'd rather be dead than cool. The statement captured his rejection of fame's superficiality, his desire for authentic human connection over celebrity worship. But the tragedy is, that he felt those were his only options. Our culture creates a false binary: be famous and suffer, or be nobody. The middle ground, being successful without sacrificing mental health, remains elusive for most artists. His legacy exists in complicated tension. The music endures, still speaking to people experiencing pain and alienation, but celebrating the art while ignoring the conditions that killed its creator feels incomplete. Nirvana's songs are beautiful and important. Kurt's death was preventable and tragic. Both truths must coexist. Looking back 30 years later, we see how little has changed. Artists still struggle. Industry still exploit. Fame still destroys. The names change, but the machine keeps grinding. And somewhere right now, a talented young person is signing a record deal that will eventually demand more than they can give, starting another cycle we refuse to break. Kurt Cobain didn't die because he was weak. He died because the weight of unwanted fame crushes even the strongest people when applied relentlessly, without relief. His death proved that fame isn't a prize to be won. It's a burden that should come with warnings and support systems and escape routes. Until we build those safeguards, more brilliant artists will follow his path, and we will continue mourning preventable losses while changing nothing. The dark side of fame isn't just the drugs, or the pressure, or the media scrutiny, though all contribute. It's the fundamental dehumanization of being transformed from person to product, from artist to icon, from Kurt Cobain into Kurt Cobain. That transformation killed him, and until we acknowledge fame itself as the problem rather than individual,